Hello, I'm Dr. David Twillie, and I have the honor of being the Chief of Soldier Readiness for here at the Blancheville Army Community Hospital. Part of my responsibility is directing the Medical Evaluation Board system, and that's what you're going to hear today. We're going to spend about the next 20 minutes together talking about a few of the details of the MEB, or Medical Evaluation Board process. Again, the slides you're going to see have lots of words on them, and I don't expect you to remember everything. But I do think it's important for you to get the overall idea of what's going to happen in the MEB process, so as you make decisions, you can make the best decision for you and for your family. Let me start by saying my team, the Pueblos, the medical service coordinators, all of the folks that are part of the VA and part of the military army are excited and honored to do this for you. So thank you for allowing us to help you, and thank you for your service. Let's get started. So we'll begin with some slides, and again, there are a lot of slides in this slide deck, and you'll have access to all of these with your Pueblo. The idea is not for you to memorize every slide because there are lots of words, but I do want you to get the concepts of what will be important to you as you make decisions in the medical board process. So this is our mission. The whole idea is that to provide soldiers and families on the chain of command with an overview of the disability evaluation system. And again, it's a very high level overview, and it will help you understand what you need to do as you make these various decisions in the process. We'll go to the next slide. The whole idea is for the process to be timely and accurate. And so that is really the focus that your Pueblo will have throughout the process to help you do just that. Next slide. Here again, the idea is to maintain an effective military fighting force, and really to make sure that every soldier who comes through our process gets an accurate evaluation of their disabilities and gets the benefits that they deserve. This slide talks much more about the disability evaluation system. I won't read it to you because we'll get into this detail. But when you get the slides, you can certainly read this if you choose to. Again, there are two processes in the disability evaluation system. We're going to focus on the first one, the integrated disability evaluation system. The legacy system actually is something that can happen for some cases, but it's exceedingly rare, so we won't spend much time focusing on the legacy system. Again, the disability evaluation system has a couple of parts to it. Our idea here is that when we do this integrated process, we want to make sure that you have the ability to get everything done in a timely manner. And this slide goes through a little bit of that. Let's go to the next slide. The timeline for the MEB part, the Medical Evaluation Board part of the process, is really supposed to be around 72 calendar days, and the entire process about 180 days. So folks often will ask us, how long do you think it'll take me to go through the MEB process? I tell people to expect somewhere between 3 to 6 months on average to go through the MEB process, but if there are some snags along the way, it can take longer than that, and sometimes even a little shorter than that, but that's a very good rule of thumb. This next slide is really designed to show you the various steps within the phases, but really, it really is designed to help you understand that you will have several times along the way where you can ask questions, where you can appeal, and where you can have help from attorneys if you desire. Next slide. Again, a quick overview of what's happening in the MEB phase for the IDES, but again, we said earlier, the legacy disability evaluation system is very, very rarely used, and so it doesn't apply to most soldiers. Let's go to the next slide. All right, the disability evaluation system, really this one I'll spend a little time on because it really tells you who the players are in the process. One is the military treatment facility. In our situation, that's Blancheville Army Community Hospital. The command authority for the process is our MTF. The physical evaluation liaison officer, the physical evaluation board liaison officer, often called the Pueblo, That is really the chief officer that will walk you through the process. So I say to soldiers all the time, make sure you know your Pueblo, put them in your cell phone, have them on speed dial, because they're really going to help you throughout the process. The Medical Evaluation Board provider is a physician that will be telling your story as part of the medical board. There's also the VA MSC, the Military Service Coordinator. They work for the Veterans Administration and sort of help you guide you through that VA portion of the process. You also have the option of attorneys that are really specifically designed for this process. The Army employs these attorneys to help you through the process. They work for you, the soldier, and not for the medical board office. They really work for you. So if you need their counsel, if you have some questions, that is one avenue that you can get really good information. The Soldiers MEB Council, sometimes called SMEBOC. Obviously, your unit commander and first sergeant, and then the most important part is you, the service member. So those are the key parts of the team as far as the Medical Evaluation Board and the IDES system are concerned. Let's go to the next slide. Again, this talks about the MEB provider and what they provide for you, but we talked about it already. They basically tell your story. Let's go to the next slide. The Physical Evaluation Board Liaison Officer is a civilian that works with you, and they help you collect all of the information that you need in order to complete your medical board. And also, every step along the way where you have a decision to make as the soldier, the Pueblo will give you counsel on what your options are and what each of those options mean. Again, your Pueblo is going to really be central to you successfully completing the process, so make sure that you have great communication with them because they will help you through that whole process. Let's go to the next slide. The VA Military Service Coordinator, again, is the administrative liaison on the VA side. They work closely with us in the medical board office and closely with you to make sure that all of your VA claims for anything that happened while you were in the military and the referred conditions, the things you got referred to the medical board for, are properly annotated on the VA system so that the benefits can be appropriately awarded. Let's go to the next step. We also have the opportunity of working with the Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment Program, or your VRNE. Again, your Pueblo will be able to help you if you want to do some sort of voc rehab throughout the process. Your Pueblo can get you that information as well. Let's go to the next slide. We already talked about the Soldiers MEB Council. For folks that have some concerns or things that you think might need to be added or changed about your medical board, the Soldiers MEB Council, or SMEBOC, are very, very good at what they do. And so if you're going to seek legal counsel, I tend to recommend folks use the ones that we have here because they understand the system extremely well and can help you. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So now let's get into the specifics of the medical board evaluation. We'll go fairly quickly here, but remember, throughout the whole process, you'll have that Pueblo, that Physical Evaluation Board Liaison Officer, that will help you step by step through the process. Now, understand what sort of kinds of confidentiality are afforded to you while you're in the med board process. Your commander does have the right to know that you are in the Medical Evaluation Board process. So let's talk specifically about your confidentiality in the medical board process. The medical board process is a personal and private matter, but the commander does have the right to know that you are in the medical board process. They also have the ability to know where you are in the process, how close you are at the beginning or to the end, and whether you've been found fit or unfit during the process. The rest of the medical data is really yours, and so our team won't divulge any of that, but you are certainly free to tell your commander whatever you'd like to tell them about your medical condition and about your med board process, but we just wanted to make sure you understood the limits of confidentiality. All right, we'll go to the next slide. The Medical Evaluation Board really is designed, the board itself is designed to have two physicians and then an approving authority as part of your board. Both of those physicians will review the information and will write it up in a way that the next phase of the process can proceed. The process has a document or is regulated by a document, Army Regulation 40-501. AR 40-501 lets us know what conditions can fail retention standards. In other words, there's a standard that you must meet medically in order to stay in the Army. If you fall below that standard, that's when the medical evaluation board begins. We use AR 40-501 to help us with that. And so the physician on the board will explain what fails and what doesn't fail when they meet with you about your narrative summary. We'll talk about that here in a bit. The most important documents in the medical board, in our opinion, are that DA 3947. Those are a record of the proceedings of the medical board, as well as your physical profile, your permanent profile, DA form 3349. Those forms, along with some of the VA forms and the forms that make up your medical exams, are all put together and are really part of the medical board itself that will go forward to Human Resources Command to make some other decisions about your case. Let's go to the next slide. You'll be asked to fill out some personal data. Again, your Pueblo will help you with all of that data. Let's go to the next slide. And then you'll get exams, physical exams, that will act as your exit exam from the military, but will also act as the rating exam for the Veterans Administration. So the exams that you will get, your MSC, your Military Service Coordinator with the VA, will help you schedule those examinations. Once those examinations are completed, they'll be returned to the medical board and will be part of the decisions that we make. So again, the VA does all of the exams, and they do that, are scheduled by your MSC, our Military Service Coordinator. Let's go to the next slide. All of this is put together in a narrative summary. The physician that you speak with, the military physician that you speak with, will write that narrative summary, and they write it in conjunction with you. They will hear your story, put together that narrative summary, will tend to go over it with you at the end to make sure that it succinctly but accurately reflects what's going on with your medical history, particularly that history that's preventing you from serving in the military. Let's go to the next slide. Once that is done, you will have the opportunity with your Pueblo to review those findings and make a decision either on your own or with the help of the legal counsel of whether you want to accept those findings. And then from there, it goes on to our physical evaluation board, which we'll talk a little bit about in a second. Once the medical board is done and you are given it to review, you'll have 5 calendar days to make a decision whether you concur with the medical board or whether you wish to disagree and ask for an independent medical review or perhaps an appeal of the findings of the medical board. Your Soldiers MEB Council can help you make that decision. If you feel like that there's something maybe was missed or that it didn't go the way you thought it should go, your attorney can help you write up the independent medical review or the rebuttal, sometimes called an appeal, to the findings of the medical board. Those will come back to the medical board, and then we have the ability through the medical board to have another physician take a look at it and then finally make a decision. Once those decisions are completed and you've finished all of the due process appeal process, the approving authority will sign the board, and then the medical board is approved and ready for forwarding to the physical evaluation board. So the medical board will be finished, and then it goes to the Human Resources Command, which really sits over the physical evaluation board, which we'll talk about here in a second. Let's go to the next slide. Let's talk quickly about elective surgery during the process. The Medicom regulations and Offices of Surgeon General regulations prohibit medically optional surgery during the medical evaluation board process. The design is to make sure that the board goes through seamlessly without much in the way of interruption, unless there's obviously an emergency. What this means specifically is that the chief of the medical board process must make a decision on whether a surgery is authorized or not authorized. So once you become part of the medical board process, if you need to have a procedure done, be sure to get that approved. Your Pueblo will help you through that process. And then once it's approved, you certainly can begin. But if it's not approved, then there's obviously a chance that if there's a problem with the surgery, that your surgery could be considered not in line of duty, and there might be UCMJ action. So just be certain that if you have any challenges that you need surgery for, you let your surgeon know that you're in the med board process and that you need to get that prior approved through the med board office before you begin. Again, the whole goal is to get you the care that you need, but do it in a way that won't interrupt your processing through the MEB process. Let's go to the next slide. Now, I'm sure you have some questions, and there'll be time for those, and you might want to jot them down now, but obviously be sure to ask your Pueblo, because when you're going to meet with your Pueblo, they will ask you if you have any questions, and if you do, make sure to take those up with your Pueblo. All right, let's talk about the physical evaluation board. Now, the MEB has finished, and now we're going to go to the PEB. The physical evaluation board determines once you have a condition that doesn't meet the retention standards for the Army, they determine whether or not you're going to be able to stay in the Army, whether you're fit or unfit. And that's a separate determination from whether the condition fails or meets retention standards. We'll talk quickly about that. The PEB is the only board in the military that can determine whether you're medically fit or unfit. So it is possible to have a condition that fails retention standards, but the needs of the Army say that, but we will still allow the soldier to be fit and continue to serve. Or by contrast, the condition may meet retention standards, but the PEB can say, but it's unfit for that particular rank or MOS. And the PEB is the body that makes that determination. Let's go to the next slide. There are two types of physical evaluation boards. The informal PEB, sometimes called the IPEB. So once the MEB goes to the PEB, they will do an informal review of the board and give an informal opinion of whether you're fit or unfit and sort of where they think things stand as far as percentages. They will present that to the soldier, and if you accept it, then that can become the final decision. But if you look at that and decide, hey, I don't think this is right, there's some things that should be added, you can always appear in person, it's done virtually now, but appear in person and do a formal PEB. So you can have an informal PEB or a formal PEB. The PEB really is designed to look at each one of your cases and determine whether that case, whether you are fit as a soldier to continue or unfit. So the important thing to note is just because you're going through the MEB doesn't necessarily mean you're leaving the military. It means that the military wants to take a very hard look at your case and determine whether you're fit to serve or no longer fit to serve. Let's go to the next slide. Once you have that informal PEB come back, you have a couple decisions to make. You can concur and request a reconsideration of your ratings. You cannot concur with the findings, or you cannot concur and ask for a formal. The Pueblo will go through each of those and will really want you to very quickly determine which of those you want to do when it comes to the election for the PEB. Let's go to the next slide. Once that is determined, the PEB will determine whether you are fit for duty or whether you're unfit for duty. If you're fit for duty, you just go back to serving. If you're unfit for duty, you can be separated without benefits. You can be separated with severance pay, be on the temporary retirement list where you have some time at home and then we'll look again in 16 months to 3 years and determine if you're able to serve at that point, or you can be permanently retired if you have a rating of 30% or above. Again, your Pueblo will walk you through each of those depending on which one is relevant in your particular case. Let's go to the next slide. If you are unfit, then you will start the process of exiting the military. You'll obviously have the ability to appeal. And again, the Soldiers MEB Council and the Soldiers PEB Council, which work hand in hand together, those attorneys, provided at no cost to you, can help you with those decisions. Let's go to the next slide. Soldiers that are found fit for duty, you are entitled to also appeal if you think that is wrong, and attend a formal hearing if you think that is wrong as well. Let's go to the next slide. The whole disability process, that part of it from the PEB, has a final review at the Physical Disability Agency that's part of Human Resources Command. They tend to review all of those cases and make sure that things have gone well. You can also appeal at the PDA level, but again, if you get that far, the Soldiers MEB Council or PEB Council will help you with that. Let's go to the next slide. So final disposition, either you're fit for military service or are unfit for military service. If you're unfit for military service, you tend to be separated no later than 90 days afterwards. There's obviously transition leave, and all those things are calculated as well. Your Pueblo will help you with that so that once the board is over and the PDA has made their final decision, then you can start to talk about what date you'll actually be exiting the military with your Pueblo. They'll help you with that. There are some adjustments that can be made about to your no later than date, but again, we spoke to your Pueblo. We talked about talking to your Pueblo about that. They can help you with that. Let's go to the next slide. And if you're found unfit by the PEB and you want to stay in the military, even though you're unfit, you can apply for something called COAD, continuation on active duty, or if you're a reservist, COR, continuation on reserve status. There are some specific qualifications that you'll have to have in order to have a successful COAD. But for some folks, that is something that they want to do, and your Pueblo can walk you through that process and see if it applies to you. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so you might have some questions. Again, that was a lot of information in a fairly short amount of time, but we wanted to make sure that you had a brief overview of the MEB-PEB process. So we've just spent about 20 minutes together going over a lot of information. Again, I don't expect that you'll remember all of that, but here's what I would encourage you to do. Make sure you jot down your questions. Ask your Pueblo. Many people say to me, Dr. Twillie, I have so many questions, and I say, what I can do is give you the answer to every question you're going to have in the IDES process. No matter what the question is, the very best answer is, ask your Pueblo. They'll be able to help you make the right decision for you and for your family. Again, we're honored to do this. Thank you for your service.